Welcome to my new series where I rank the top 10 crash outs in the Bible because I think it's important to note that crash outs are biblical, but not always in a good way. For this context, I consider a crash out to be irrational or impulsive behavior that puts yourself or other people in harm's way. And with that being said, I'm going to start off with number 10 being the ear incident. So the ear incident was recorded in all the Gospels, so Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And the ear incident is where Peter cut off a servant's ear. Funnily enough, John is the only one who snitched and said, yeah, it was Peter. All the other Gospels said, yeah, someone cut off someone else's ear. But John was like, no, it's Peter. It's Peter who cut off his ear. Anyways, so I'm going to start with John and give you some context clues. The context clues are Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, decided, you know what? This whole discipleship thing with Jesus not really working for me. I'm going to go and tell these people who hate him where he's at, and I'm going to give me some money. So he's like, hey, I know where Jesus is at. I'm one of his disciples. Give me some money. They're like, okay, here's some money. So he took the money. This is the oversimplified version. He took the money. He found where Jesus was at because he was praying in the garden because Jesus likes to pray, and he was meeting with the disciples there. And so Judas is like, Rabbi, and and that's the translation for rabbi is teacher, because he was teaching them. It's like, Rabbi. And so Judas doesn't come alone. He's got chief priests. He's got soldiers. They got weapons. I mean, they armed to the teeth. And Jesus is like, who are you bringing all these weapons for? Like, I'm a criminal. Who are you looking for? And they're like, we're looking for you. And he was like, okay, well, here I am. So the other disciples that are with Jesus, they're kind of stunned, right? Because they're looking at Judas, who they didn't realize was the betrayer, right? They're looking at Judas like, what are you doing over here with the enemy? And they have all these weapons, right? And so Peter decides to take out his knife and cut off the chief priest's servant's ear. Cut off his right ear, just cut it off. And obviously Jesus was very upset about this. He's like, well, I'll oversimplify it for you. He's like, whoever lives by the sword dies by the sword, and I have to drink from my father's cup, and I have to do this, let this go. So he cuts off that man's ear, and everybody else is scared because you cut off a man's ear, just cut it off. And so what's interesting about that, right, is after they captured Jesus, because the other disciples did not stand on business. Sorry, that's not funny. The other disciples did not stand on business, so they was like, ooh, okay. So Peter takes a step back as well. So interesting. I have to have sympathy for Peter because Peter is a human just like the rest of us. But also I'm like, okay, Peter's the only one who was married. So maybe he was thinking, I got to take a step back. I got a wife at home, I'm trying to start a family, And so when Jesus is brought to the Sanhedrin and they're spitting on him and they're mocking him and they're slapping him, I mean, they're just doing a whole bunch of stuff to Jesus before he even gets to the cross, to get him to blaspheme. Peter is, kind of, he's looking, but he's standing back, right? So everybody's like, some people are asking Peter, aren't you one of his disciples? And Peter's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And so they ask again, yeah, you are one of his disciples. I remember seeing you because, newsflash, Peter was one of Jesus's earliest disciples, and he had started his ministry 3 years ago. So the 3 years, I mean, obviously not 3 years ago, but his ministry was 3 years long, and you side by side with Jesus, and you just cut off a man's ear. So absolutely. But by the third time, he's cussing them out. He's swearing an oath. And so the modern day version of swearing an oath would be like, oh, my mama, I don't know who that is. But you lied, sir. Sir, you lied because you just cut off a man's ear, and everybody has been seeing you with Jesus for 3 years. Anyways, so he denies, the rooster crows, and Peter's like, oh yeah, Jesus did say that I was going to deny him 3 times before the rooster crows. So Peter cut off someone's ear and fulfilled prophecy in the same day. And that's why I'm ranking him number 10. Now, it's not the worst thing that has happened in the Bible, and I obviously do not condone anyone cutting off anyone's ear. It's not the worst thing that you can do, but it's definitely not the best. Stay tuned for next time.